All right, let's get started. Welcome back to everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Problem Solving Moving Guided Pathways Online April webinar series. This is the final one in our series. So some technical announcements. So you will be, as participants, muted for this webinar and your video will be turned off upon entry. If you are joining by phone and using also your computer or tablet, please make sure you use your phone and enter your participant ID number that you see on your screen. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please ask for help using the chat. Our team will message you privately for support. Please write tech and then whatever issue that you're experiencing at the moment. So, as you join us for this week to think about guided pathways redesign, I want you to return to the question that I asked in our very first webinar. What is your why or your purpose? What is your motivation for doing the work that you do? Please use the chat to type in your response. And as you get settled, so for me, this is something that I think about a lot, learning from colleges, you all, about kind of the creative solutions that and approaches that are coming up to really center students and their experiences has been a really big inspiration, a big part of my why and the motivation for the work that I do. And now, especially in this COVID and really challenging time, like seeing the space for connection and opportunity, reaffirming this commitment to education and its purpose has been a really important part of my why. I see students' success, equity, and helping students succeed, seeing their plan for their future, support students with successful outcomes and prepare a pathway for their future, expand pathway opportunities for students. I want to give students the help I never got while I was a college student, building community to meet student needs, to help students be ready for their careers, and supporting students in meeting their personal goals. These are some of the responses that I'm seeing in the chat, excuse me. Oh, and another one, equity in helping students understand their strengths. And students building their dreams while pursuing their education. Thank you all so much for sharing. So my name is Shia Smith Miyazaki. I am a director at Career Ladders Project. I am your facilitator for the GP webinar series with support from the California Community College's Chancellor's Office, as well as the philanthropic partners that we have. We at Career Ladders Project provide guided pathways capacity building for community colleges across California. And our GP webinar, as always, is brought to you by a team that includes Chris Palmer, myself, Valeria Torres, as well as Naomi Castro. So these are the folks who are working behind the scenes hard to make this webinar possible. And the purpose of these webinar series is to make sure that we provide a peer support and problem-solving opportunities to address emerging issues and equity challenges related to guided pathways, particularly during this challenging times. All the materials, including video recordings, slides, any links that we share in the chat, will be shared via email as a follow-up, as well as the Vision Resource Center. So if you did not register using our interest form, please make sure you type in your email address in the chat so that we can share those resources with you afterwards. Each week, we have brought together different voices from the colleges, including faculty GP leads. We've had student leaders, counselors, administrators, former classified folks, and we also covered different GP areas and its responses to COVID-19, which included so far student engagement, moving student support and FYE online, GP and equity integration, and student communication. So the format of this webinar for you to ask questions and participate via chat. If you have a question for one of our panelists, please indicate the college before you ask your question. So example, Santa Ana, what did you do, ... If you have a general question regarding guided pathways, please indicate general and then your question. If you have an approach you would like to share in response to participant questions or just what was shared during this webinar, please type in idea and an approach that you would like to share. And again, if you're having any technical issues, please type in tech and then our team member will reach out to you privately. So this week, we have colleagues both from West Hills College Lemoore as well as Santa Ana College joining us to share how they are maintaining GP momentum during these challenging times. We have Val Martinez Garcia, who is the Vice President of Student Services at West Hills College Lemoore. We also have Stephanie Clark, who is the Guided Pathways Coordinator at Santa Ana College. All right, Val, please take it away. Oh, hold on just a second, Val.
Okay.
Let me unmute you. There you go.
We're good then?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. Still working through all the technology stuff. I just wanted to say thank you all for everything you're doing out in the state. And I've seen some of those comments of what drives you every day. And I know I myself share exactly those same sentiments and really appreciate all the hard work that you are doing. So with that said, I'm Val Garcia, I'm the Vice President of Student Services at West Hills College Lemoore. We are located in the heart of Central California, as most of you know. Our unduplicated head count's about 7,000 students, 64% HSI, Hispanic serving. 70% of our students are on some type of financial aid. And 45% of our courses are offered in the OER format. And we have 3 degrees that are ZTC, which are zero textbook cost. And we are looking to have 1 more this fall. So that'll give us 4 total degrees that are ZTC, zero textbook costs. We are in Achieving the Dream College. We're in Achieving the Dream College of Distinction specifically. And recently we were named to the 2020, actually 2019 Aspen Award top 150 colleges in the US. And I bring those up to you to give you some context of who we are at Lemoore and what kind of drives us. Moving into the slide of our Guided Pathways Initiative and our North Star. We've done a lot of great work over the years, and what really drove us to begin this great work was our membership in the ATD effort. But as we grew in that effort, along came Guided Pathways, and we built upon our ATD efforts to build what we call our strong framework, and you can see it there. And our strong framework is very important to us because with our strong framework and our North Star, we have all of our work underneath that framework or within that framework. There is nothing that we do at Lemoore, West Hills College Lemoore, that does not fit under the umbrella of our North Star or within our pillars of the Guided Pathways. And that's work that we've been doing now for several years. And we were really making some inroads on a lot of the initiatives that you were doing the same things with. And so we were really proud of our work, and obviously other entities have been recognizing us for, but really what drove our work were the individuals, the people that were involved every day. And that's what makes it so hard for us as we move into this new world that we have before of us. Overnight, COVID-19 made us all shift from a world that was dominated, and I should say CVD-19. That's what I was told my daughter, they call it now, when they do their hashtag, whatever. So anyway, overnight, COVID-19 made us shift from a world that was dominated by things like AB 705, accreditation, basic needs, guided pathways. And it made us shift to a world that we were working as teams and groups. And all of a sudden, we had to figure out how to work as a group of work isolated. And we had to be now in this environment that we're so unfamiliar with. And with all that said, we know the challenges we have. Can you imagine how frustrating it is for our students? Even as we started to feel isolated in our work, we know the future for ourselves is kind of blurry, but we still have to manage to pull ourselves together. And we have to somehow work through decades of conversations and debates that we've had regarding policy, procedures, and all the different things that go along with that. Like in our district, I know arguments like VPN access, digital signatures, and the role of counselors, advisors, even business reimbursement processes were always something that we were arguing or battling with. And all of a sudden in 3 weeks, all these arguments are turned on their heads. And these are just a few of my district's issues that I'm sharing with you. I know you have similar experiences, and you can add to my short list, from where you sit. We've all seen, what the Chancellor's office has been able to do in a short period of time with their communications, and how many hurdles they've helped us to clear. It's been amazing. But my question to all that, excuse me, is really why? Why have we been able to do so much in such a short amount of time? I asked myself that question, and then the response I get to myself as well, this is kind of how things were. The students were in need. So I started asking colleagues of mine around the state, why have we been able to respond so quickly to all of this madness, really is what you want to call it. And the response I often get from them is similar. These changes in the responses that we've had to make during these challenging times were needed to help address the fact that our students were in crisis. I found that response very interesting. The slide that shows the students out, individuals out, is going to kind of illustrate something for you. For every 100 new students who enter XYZ community college, this is what the picture would look like for 100 students. This next slide shows within 3 years, 10 earn an XYZ degree or certificate. So only 10 students per 100 over 3 years in a typical community college receive a degree. I found that interesting. I found it really interesting because I first saw this slide really in 2013 in the ATD conference I attended. And after reviewing the slides for a presentation I was going to make, I thought, when were our students not in crisis? Now really think about that. When were they not struggling with hunger, unemployment, housing, mental health, transportation? When were our disproportionately impacted students not in crisis? Here's a fact. Our students have always been in crisis. Sadly, to me, and I'm guilty as anybody, it took an epidemic, a pandemic, a worldwide crisis for us to realize that our students were in crisis? Or did we just get comfortable with the dogmas, you could say, of the past and didn't have the courage to challenge institutions, the Academy of Education, because it was too hard or too risky? It was these thoughts that kept me up at night as we prepared to make our transition, because I really felt guilty, because I thought, where have I been in this struggle for the last, in my career, almost 2 decades? Our students have always been in crisis, and it took a pandemic for us to react like they've been in crisis. Interesting. Speaking specifically, I took that kind of framework into our team meetings, and this next slide illustrates the framework that the team that I have used to frame everything that we're going to do to make the transition from student services on the ground to remote operation. We decided that we wanted to keep the strong initiative and the North Star in focus, just like we always have in everything we've done. We did not want to recreate the wheel. So we wanted to leverage existing resources and existing processes that were working. We want to leverage them, ramp them up. And the most important thing was we had to agree that we had to accept change and the speed that it was going to come at us. Because one thing was for certain in this environment was things were going to change, and they were going to change rapidly. And as all of you experienced, they did. So what did Lemoore do? I want to speak to specifically a couple of things that we did. As you see, a traditional completion team is pretty large, and everyone has variations of the completion teams. Some are larger than others, some are smaller than others. We called our completion team success teams, and they typically had this configuration. But what we thought was this was going to be too much for our current configuration as far as being online and remote. We just streamlined some things and refocus our completion teams. So what we decided to do was transition them into what we're calling care teams. Now, I'm showing you a slide that has only a couple of people as opposed to the big network. The network is still available, but these four individuals are doing the yeoman's work of triaging students as they come in through either an early alert or a student of concern form, which I'll show you a little bit later, and really working hands-on with students. And we're calling them care teams because that's our approach to how we are addressing the students' needs. We are identifying the concern, we are activating external and internal resources available to help the students. Then we are going to remedy the student's concern by using those resources. And then we're going to evaluate how well we serve the students. And that's kind of our approach with the care teams. Our advisor and our counselor, I know there's going to be a lot of questions about that, work in tandem. The priority of the care team is not process, like you may see like educational plans, petitions to graduate. Right now, our sole focus is students' basic needs. How are they existing in this rural college, in this remote environment? You know, what's going on with them? How can we assist them? Are they lacking access to technology? Are they needing access to some kind of assistance, whether it be transportation, anything that you may normally get through a basic needs team some of you have on your campuses? We decided to push the forefront of our completion teams or our success teams and refocus or repurpose them to be care oriented. And that was always kind of our hope, that we wanted to make that next evolution at Lemoore for our success teams. This pandemic has pushed that to the forefront of our conversations. I can answer more questions later about that, but the care team really works together to go through all of the early alerts, students of concern, and work through specific issues with students. These care teams are assigned by learning area, or some of you may have divisions. So your divisions where we have a counselor embedded in the division or the learning area. And these care teams also have me present on the care teams because I feel it's necessary for me to be involved with what's going on every day to assist students in that format. I think looking back on it, it's probably something I've always should have done, especially for the size of our college. I know some other administrators have larger colleges and larger teams and more things to consider, but I really felt moving forward, it's something that I need to be a part of. So what did we do for our faculty? Again, leveraging resources for our faculty, we use a case management tool, that's a stoplight, to where we put out to faculty so that they can know what is going to be a student of concern, what is a note, we use Civitas for notes, and what is something that they need to put in as an early alert. And we use a stoplight for our faculty to be able to use this tool to be able to put students in these correct areas. So on the back end, we either take it to the care team or the BAT team maybe picks it up. For our faculty, we don't worry about where it goes for them to send it to a specific group. They just submit a single form. And the back end, we kind of triage it out to where it needs to go. And so we have ramped up our discussions with our faculty, moving into, we now have a Civitas 2.0, and so Inspire 2.0. So we are ramping up our early alert efforts so that they are fully aware of how to submit their early alerts via this new environment we're in, and trying to assure them that on the back end that we, the teams, do our follow-up with the students. Our BAT team is already in place and is familiar with the procedures, whether it be remote or not. Conversations are a little bit more difficult in this environment, but communication is something that we really try to make sure that we are following through with, because we already feel isolated as it is, and we don't want to make people feel more so by not communicating with them how we followed up, how students are doing, what are students' needs, not having all those conversations. And so to help with that, we are leveraging a current practice that we have where we have embedded in our learning areas, which again, for some of you are divisions, counseling a member who talks to the faculty about their concerns with what may be going on with academics or whatnot in processes, but also going to ramp up those conversations that relate to specific trends within the learning areas, student population. What are they noticing with students? How can we help better serve faculty? how can we better meet the needs of our students? And so embedding our answers has been something that we've been doing, but again, shifting the priority again from process to care, from being concerned about what has been going on with A&R to being what's going on with student health. So making a small shift, for some it may be a large shift, but for me, it's just a small shift and maybe something that we should have been doing all along. So real quickly, I just want to share some of reflections from from the way I kind of see some things. First of all, reflections on change. Moving into a change situation is very difficult. I trust to my managers and the people with whom I work is to remember three things. First of all, that culture eats strategy for lunch. Whenever you are entering a new change situation, always remember the culture you were in because it differs from institution to institution. And we may be one system, but really we are very independent. Even so much when you break this down into districts, our individual colleges are very different from one another. So culture strategy for lunch. Also, trust is earned. That's a big one. Relationships. Being involved with the discussions as a care team is something that, again, I've always felt we should have been involved in, but I never really thought that that was something that was necessary. And reflecting on it, not only has it been necessary, excuse me, but it is part of my job. And it's something that I think moving forward that I'm going to try to keep in focus more and more. But relationships are always important to establish trust. If you can look someone in the eye and give them bad news, if they believe in you, if they trust you, it goes a lot easier. And if you help them understand that how you're going to make it better, again, if they trust you, it makes it easier for everybody involved. And lastly, a big one is we'll go through a change process, is admit when you're wrong. As leaders, sometimes I think we're too quick to try to figure out a way to soften the message or not take the hit on this. Here's the reality. It's okay to say I'm wrong. And it's okay to admit it, accept it, acknowledge it. And again, if people trust you and you make it better, it's going to be okay. And it's okay to the masses don't get, and you're just seeing barrier after barrier. It's okay to shift gears. So those are three reflections on change that I have that I wanted to share with you, that I share with my managers, and they get tired of me hearing it, but I kind of try to stress to them all the time. And lastly, just a final reflection. I coach football. I'm gonna tell you a real quick story. I coached football for 14 years at the high school level. I thought I would coach Notre Dame at some point in my life, and that was never gonna happen. But I used to go to a lot of conferences and with our staff, and our staff would go to these football clinics, and they go to a clinic with professional coaches and whatnot. And this one particular time, I had a coach who attended a workshop where the Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator was commenting about how he had a player that could do this and this, they were in a certain defense, this is what could happen, this is what can happen. And I was laughing because I said, I raised my hand and I asked the question. I said, okay, so who is that defensive player? And on my left, on your left, is a picture of Bruce Smith. He said, well, this is Bruce Smith. Well, Bruce Smith's an All-American. Bruce Smith is an NFL pro. Bruce Smith is basically a legend, right? And I have Ted Smith. That's a picture of Lucas from the movie Lucas, but Ted Smith was about the same size as Lucas. And I said, there's no way I could do what he does. So I really tried to convey to that staff at the time, let's be true to who we are. Let's do what we can do. And let's take the best of ideas and make it fit with what we have. And if it doesn't quite fit, it doesn't work for us. In other words, for all of you out there, what we do, what Bakersfield does, what Cerritos does, what Rancho Santiago does, that's what they do. It may not work for you. So my suggestion to you is be true to who you are as an institution, and remember, what works for someone else may not work for us. And by doing that, keep in mind culture strategy for lunch. Trust is premium. It's key. and admit when you need to go a different direction. Okay. Well, with that said, thank you very much. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Val. I know there are a few questions in the chat, but please feel free to add any questions that you have for Val. We're going to have a few minutes now to address some quick questions, and then we'll have some more time at the very end. So Val, I have some comments. Leslie says, yes, thank you for focusing on basic needs. And we have a little bit in terms of questions. Can you please share a little bit about your case management in the success teams and also your communication to students?
So our case management is a little bit different than most of yours. What we do is we use Inspire for Advisor. It's a Civitas product to be able to manage all of our cases. All of our counselors put notes into the Inspire for Advisor. The notes are anecdotal, they're broad. We do have a different channel, you could say, for DSPS notes. And all staff and faculty have access to notes. And so everybody can see kind of how that student's story has unfolded. And we work with each other. I'll give you an example. We had a math faculty who was having an issue with a student, and she went into the notes and saw that the student actually had seen an English faculty who put a note in saying, again, a general anecdote about the student. And so the math faculty contacted the English faculty to talk about how to address the students, because in the math faculty's class, the student was doing poorly. In the English faculty's class, the student was doing okay. So they exchanged strategies on how to better help the students. Our model is communication is key. And again, going back to that culture strategy for lunch, know your college's environment. This is something that we do at Lemoore. We're a small campus, 45 full-time faculty. So we can do things a little bit different as far as training for messaging, which we've taken a lot of time to do. Worked out a lot of bugs pre all of this. So this is a lot of work that was done already. All this being the COVID-19 issue that we're experiencing. But that's how we kind of communicate with each other, is through the notes. Communication with students, we use Impact to nudge students along, making them aware of different things that are going on, different promotionals, changes that are being made to like at the EW, for instance, for grading policy. But really, communication for us it's kind of open. Everybody has access to the same information, and it's kind of our hub for how we triage out students and their needs.
Thank you, Val. And I also have a clarifying question. So in the care team, how are administrators assigned to the specific care team?
That was a great question. So what I've done is I've repurposed one of my administrators to essentially be a quasi coordinator with myself over the care teams. And so we did the 2 administrator approach because as a vice president, there's some things that is going to take me more time to get to, and others I have different priorities. But I needed someone to manage the day-to-day operations of the care team from an administrative end. So similar to someone like a director of counseling maybe, or you have director of guided pathways in a very similar vein. I repurposed a director within student services to be able to manage the care teams. And what that person does is help with the triaging of cases as they come in to the care team. And so that way the counselor doesn't get bombarded by, let's say, 20 cases on a day. Maybe that's triaged by the administrator to where they only have to deal with 6 or 7 of them, because as where the administrator sits, they may have triaged them out to different areas to be able to address the student's needs, as opposed to going into a counselor's lap right away. And because I was thinking about counselor workload. So whatever I can do to reduce the workload of a counselor so the focus becomes basic needs, especially in this environment, the better.
Thank you. I have one more question. How's your college organized around the guided pathways work and the North Star? Do you have specific design or work teams, or is the work kind of integrated into the college committee? And one more follow-up to that is that, are they still meeting during this pandemic?
We have a student success committee that still meets regularly, and we've actually ramped up our efforts from meeting once a month to bi-weekly now, again, with the focus being on student basic needs. Moving away from processes and looking at those things, but looking at student basic needs and how we can best address them. To answer the question as far as is there a standing committee, that would be the standing committee. Also has the guided pathways embedded in it. But really the North Star and the structure, our guided path structure, and when I do mean this, it really truly drives everything we do at the campus. It drives everything that we do. And again, if an initiative comes from the outside that someone wants to introduce in the campus, if it doesn't fit the North Star or doesn't follow our get strong, start strong, stay strong, finish strong, our pillars, it doesn't belong. And it doesn't matter how much money is attached to it. We really are focused on our planning and our strategy and that North Star.
Thank you so much, Val. We're going to come back to you later on in our open Q&A, but thank you so much for sharing. I know there's a lot to think about here. Okay, so now that we are halfway through our webinar, this is just kind of a reminder. It's been over a month. I can't believe how long it's been since the shelter-in-place order took place. And in this period of uncertainty, I know a lot of us are serving students in radically new ways, and self-care is really, really critical to remember in this time. And we're likely sitting in one position on a computer all day. So this is our daily kind of reminder to, if you're able, stand up, stretch your legs, and make sure you also hydrate, grab some water. We're just going to take a quick break here and then come back. Okay, getting some circulation back into our legs, and let's continue. Okay, Stephanie, please take it away.
Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for being here. Oh,
yes, please start your video.
Let me try.
Okay.
So my computer's dragging a little bit again, so I turned it off, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Stephanie Clark. I'm the new Guided Pathways Coordinator at Santa Ana College. I've only been the coordinator since winter session, and so this is my first full semester serving this role. But I did serve as the co-lead of our communications team before accepting the coordinator position. So I wanted to talk very briefly about the first 2 years pre-COVID work, and then what we've been doing since COVID. So we're in our third year. We're part of the 20 colleges for the California Guided Pathways Project. And our first 2 years were focused on identifying and organizing our meta majors, which we're calling career and academic pathways, and then also identifying what we called design teams that put the plans in motion for addressing mostly the first 3 pillars of guided pathways. So we had design teams, which starting this year were converted into what we called implementation teams, because we did have goals, we have set plans, and because of that, we felt that we were no longer designing around the pillars. We were really starting to implement things and changing our policies and processes, and improving our campus using guided pathways. So this year, we did launch guided pathways officially for our campus, and that was done through what we call Career and Academic Pathways Fair. And everyone in our community was invited. That included high school students, current students, a lot of career education people, invited their industry professionals, and that introduced people to what you'll see, the icons, the colors, the website. So we did launch Guided Pathways. This happened in fall. And we also had some goals set for this year, which included organizing and introducing students to these new meta majors, and then also implementing success teams. In the fall, we had a pilot success team that ran with our Future Educators CAP. And this spring, what we're hoping to do is scale our success teams. And that's part of how we've been moving Guided Pathways online. So what you are seeing on screen right now is the pathways that we came up with. So these are our career and academic pathways. We have 8 pathways, and one of them includes our continuing education. So our School for Continuing Ed, it's a pretty large area, and it's an area that I would say prior to Guided Pathways, maybe there wasn't enough work with or communication with continuing education. But now with Guided Pathways, we're very intentional about using non-credit as a way to, one, support our students, and to maybe start bridging students in continuing ed over to the credit side. So you can see that we came up with some identity here for our pathways. So moving on to the next slide, what I wanted to talk about was that this year was a little different than others. Our fall, while we had the Guided Pathway launch of our Meta Majors event and everyone really loved it, we got really positive feedback. That was a great event for us, but in the fall, we did not have a faculty coordinator for Guided Pathways. And because of that, there was maybe a little bit less movement forward with some of our implementation teams. So as I came on board, we continued to do some of the work that we had been doing. We did have a core team, we're calling it a core team meeting, which consists of all of the co-leads for our implementation or design teams, as well as administrators that are involved in Guided Pathways. So we did manage to have a core team meeting prior to the end of fall, which was really good. And at that time, we talked a little bit about a reorg for our Guided Pathway structure. But when spring came along, COVID-19 crisis also joined us. And with that, as I'm sure all of us experienced, there were postponements and some stalls in some of the work that we were doing. Maybe not by choice, but because there were a lot of other issues that we needed to address rather quickly. But I did want to say that one thing that we did at our college as we moved to remote is we actually had site visits the first week of remote instruction. So we had scheduled these site visits with, I believe it's California Guided Pathways Project, and then also Ed Insights. So we had 2 different groups visiting us, and both groups interviewed stakeholders in Guided Pathways, but also faculty that weren't necessarily involved in Guided Pathways. And we kept on the same schedule. We did all of the interviews remotely. And I thought that that was really great for me as the coordinator, because I got feedback from these visitors almost immediately. So I received some insight into how the faculty were feeling about Guided Pathways, and then also how the team members that were on Guided Pathways were feeling, and what they needed, what they wanted, what they're looking forward to. And I thought that was very helpful for us, and that sort of helped get us to move forward with some other Guided Pathways events. So we managed to have these site visits remotely. One of our visitors did observe our core team meeting, which included all of our co-leads, and that was really great. Just to see how these conversations were taking place around reorg, but also around how to support our students during COVID-19. And then we have continued to have these core team meetings where we set goals, and we have some of the more difficult conversations around our design teams. And then I have weekly meetings with the deans, the Dean of Student Support Services and the Dean of Academic Affairs. We're in constant communication about moving guided pathways forward. And we also work on an executive committee, which includes 2 VPs on student support side and academic affairs. And that's sort of the area that we can sort of identify budget and then set some higher level goals, not just for this year, but maybe for next year as well. Our implementation teams are still meeting, though I will say COVID-19 has sort of stalled some of the regular meetings. And then we're having virtual events as well. So what I'd like to do is maybe okay, I can talk a little bit about all of these. I sort of covered some of these slides already, I'm sorry. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how we decided to add some virtual events to our calendar. In our last core team meeting, I brought the findings from our site visits to the core team, and I initiated the conversation about possibly reorganizing guided pathways work. Some people were not necessarily prepared to have that conversation yet because we don't have any goals set for the next academic year, and they're already feeling like the school year's over already. It's not, but I think that's how people are feeling. And so that was a difficult conversation to encourage people to consider maybe having some events where we can not only discuss reorg, but also goal setting and possibly recruitment. So I don't know if other campuses are experiencing this, but our guided pathways work, I mean, the people on the teams are really fantastic, and a lot of them have been on guided pathways since day one. So a big part of it is sort of recruiting new faculty right now. With COVID-19, I know that people are feeling overwhelmed and possibly like their workload is higher than usual. So recruitment has been difficult in a way to get new people involved, but it's really important that guided pathways continue to scale across the campus. And I feel that as the coordinator, I understand that. And then I felt like my executive team feels that that's a priority too, to encourage recruitment and scaling across campus. And then with our site visit information, the visitors shared with us that faculty did want to see guided pathways and how it's going to affect their programs and their classrooms. And they felt that they didn't really know who was involved with it, and they didn't really know what was going on with guided pathways. They missed some events that we used to host with guided pathways, which were college-wide forums. So prior to this year, we would regularly host GP forums where people could attend, they could get kind of the news and updates on guided pathways, find out about the design teamwork, and then that would be a great opportunity to recruit people because we'd have short breakout sessions to identify goals and set some plans in motion. So people had reported that they missed these guided pathway forums. And what I did at our core team meeting is I encouraged the core team to consider supporting another forum, but virtually. And we did decide that we are going to have a forum in May, and it will be college-wide. It will include classified and faculty, because one issue is that classified are feeling that they don't really know where they fit into guided pathways, but it's so important for classified to be involved because the classified sometimes are kind of the front line. Like they know what students are looking for and what questions they're asking, and they also are much more familiar with some of the bureaucratic processes that we're trying to overcome. So we're going to have a guided pathways forum in May, and it's going to have a first part that's just sort of a recap of what we've done this year, some of our victories, what our design work looks like. And then we're going to have breakout sessions that address 5 areas. So our mapping area, success teams, marketing and communication. We have a new learning and engagement team, which is addressing specifically Pillar 4, and then what we can do with our Starfish tools and our tracking data. So we are going to host this in May, and we're hoping that this is an opportunity for faculty and classified to join in and get some updates, but then also to possibly join in some new teams that we're developing and setting some plans and goals in place for academic year 2021. What we didn't want to do is end this year and find that we have no plans and no goals in place and that our teams haven't met in 9 months. So we really wanted to make sure that the work is moving forward. The other virtual event that we're going to be, or events that we're going to be offering in May is going to be the launch of our success teams. So initially our success team launch was scheduled for March 20th, which was canceled and postponed when we entered this crisis. But it's really important that we get these success teams rolled out for fall 20. And so what we've decided to do is to break down our event into 2 parts. One where the entire college is invited to meet our pilot team. And that's the members that piloted our success teams in the fall for our future educators. And I think that's a good way for faculty to get to understand what success teams can look like, why it's meaningful, what it felt like to work on a team. And then we're going to have a part 2 at the end of May, and that's going to be the launch of our success teams. And each team is associated with a career and academic pathway. So we're going to have 8 success teams aligned to each pathway. And at the end of May, that will be the first time that our full teams meet, work with one another, identify goals for their CAPs, and set some plans in motion for the upcoming year. So we're going to have 3 kind of large events happening in May that are all guided pathways oriented and that are focused on kind of moving forward and maintaining the momentum. And then I can speak a little bit to some of the additional work that we've been able to do during COVID-19, and then I know we're going to have questions after this. So I did want to kind of just highlight some of the areas that we're focusing on right now. We have a brand new learning and engagement team. This is addressing Pillar 4. Currently, our work is on designing our professional development week, or what some people call Flex Week. And we're hoping to actually develop a full plan for the entire year, but we're focusing on this first professional development week. And we're focusing on digital literacy and equity. We're bringing practitioners to the table to discuss equity-minded practices. We have sent 20 people to the Skyline Equity Institute, and that has included the Vice President of Student Support Services. So we'll be meeting actually today to discuss how we can move equity work forward. I launched the first Digital Guided Pathways newsletter during COVID. We will be having our GP forum. We have reorg discussions ongoing from 2 different design teams right now, and we're setting our goals for the next year. Every week we meet about our Starfish inventory. So that's a weekly meeting that's about guided pathways, but it's not necessarily a design team at the time. And then we have web design work happening every week. And I'm a member of the web redesign team. I'm also the faculty lead for the Starfish inventory team. So guided pathways is sort of front and center for some of these big initiatives that we have going on at the college. Okay, and I think that covers most of what we've been doing with bringing guided pathways online. I will say, you know, this COVID-19 crisis, as was mentioned earlier, it really kind of highlights the strengths and weaknesses at your institution. So now is a great time to make an inventory of what's working and what's not working. But I also feel like there are some easy wins. This crisis has made us move faster on issues that we probably knew we needed to address for the benefit of our students. Um, and and we're hoping that we can carry some of that work over after the crisis ends. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. We have a lot of questions actually
Okay.
around your success teams. Can you talk a
Okay.
little bit more about who's on the success team? What are the roles? How do they get on them? And let's start there.
Okay, lots of questions. Well, okay, I can tell you the roles first, and then I'll say we're sort of doing micro success teams this year because we want to see what the workload looks like before we start adding more people. But our roles have we're calling them CAPs, Career and Academic Pathways. So we have a CAP coordinator, and many of our success teams actually have 2 coordinators, and those usually, not always, are middle management, like deans. Deans tend to be coordinators. And then we have a faculty lead, a counseling lead, a success coach, a career coach, and then we have 3 other roles that aren't going to be as integrated into an individual success team, but will be supporting our success team. And those 3 roles include a researcher from our research office, a financial aid specialist, and a student mentor. Okay, so what we'll probably be starting with this first year, we'll have coordinators, the faculty lead, and the counseling lead. And we're still working out with our administration what positions should be serving as the success coach. We think the success coach might help with funneling students to the correct group or person for general concerns. I hope I answered that question.
Tanana, yeah, no, thank you. How did people get assigned to success teams? I know this is
Volunteer. They were so this right now success teams are all through colleagues who have volunteered to serve on the success teams. And so in some ways it's been a little more difficult to recruit for certain positions because we're trying not to create positions that interfere with a position that already exists on campus. So there might be a little bit of we're looking at some org charts and trying to align roles that already exist. Like we have career technicians on campus, and maybe those people can serve as career coaches, right? So, but for the faculty lead, counselor, and coordinator, it's on a volunteer basis right now.
So you mentioned that the Future Educators team is your pilot team. That's the only existing success teams that you have.
That's right.
Do you notice, like, how's that going and any changes in focus for their work to address the current context they're in?
Well, they have not necessarily been meeting this semester because their team was really supposed to focus on fall, and they did, and they've reported back to us, and you know, we were going to have success teams launching in March. So their work hasn't necessarily continued throughout the entire academic year. So their focus is sort of back to their own roles, although I have found that they are communicating about certain things. For instance, helping students with careers and internships and things like that, because that's sort of something that's interesting to them, and they seem to all be connected that way. But I will say the Future Educator success team is not meeting during this semester officially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I want to open it back up to bring Val back in to kind of ask some final closing questions. Val, are you there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome.
Just
Um,
me and my fan.
yeah, you and your fan and your ladder.
Yeah, I've been told I have to be out here in the garage. I mean, it's normally my space anyway, but too many bodies inside.
Yeah. So I want to bring back to a conversation that we had where you talked about how everybody is a retention coach at
Right.
West Hills Lemoore. Can you talk a little more about like that concept? What do you mean by that?
Right. That goes back to Dr. Clark and her view that it's our responsibility for everybody to have access. Well, first of all, have access to data, but also a responsibility to be able to assist students, whether you be one of the most important people on campus as a janitor, or someone like me who just happens to walk around aimlessly as a vice president. I'm joking, of course, but definitely we all should be responsible for helping students and addressing their needs, being able to refer students to where they can get the support they need. So instead of looking at that's a counselor's job or that's just a faculty's job, we see it as all of our jobs to be able to assist students. And that's why one of the big pushes that she made about 2 years ago now, year and a half ago, was to have access to data available to all of our staff and faculty so that we could all understand the student stories and what was going on with students. So they wouldn't have to go to 4 or 5 people and retell their story 4 or 5 times. We could refer to the notes and they could see where they've been, who's assisted them, kind of what's been the mechanisms in place for them, and did they or did they not take advantage of them? Because sometimes people will say, well, I spoke to the lady, and you go around thinking like, who the heck is the lady? This lady causes so much havoc on our campus. We can just find out who that one lady is, we fix everything. And the reality is it's not a lady, it's all of our fault, because we have a tendency to refer students between buildings and between areas without really thinking about that student really has a story that's really important. If we're going to take care of it right then and there, without worrying about whose role it is, it's better.
Thank you so much, Val. Stephanie and Val, is there kind of final thoughts that you would like to leave us with before we say goodbye?
I see Giselle Simon was on the call. Just so you know, she has been a huge champion of our work on our campus. And if you don't feel comfortable or cannot reach out to me, on our campus, Giselle's been just amazing with the Guided Pathways effort. Now she was an administrator. She went back to being a faculty, which I think was a great step for her because, we all want to be faculty, right? And so, so definitely reach out to her. I think she's just an amazing job, and she's an amazing support for all of us and all of you also, if you would like to.
Stephanie?
I would just say, keep your eye on the prize. And I think during this time, really, if you're working on guided pathways work, I would highly recommend that you consider focusing on Pillar 4, because now's the time when students really need our support, and we need faculty to understand what students might be going through. And then also just think about virtual ways of supporting our students so that they don't have to walk between buildings to get things done, because our campus had the same problem. They should be able to find what they need using our websites. So yeah, that's kind of where my head is at right now.
Thank you both. Just like a warm round of applause, everybody cheering you on from Zoom. Thank you so much. I think what you had shared is really important to keep in mind. From Val, you're thinking about like leadership and this need to really make sure everything is centered around guided pathways and not reinventing the wheel, to Stephanie kind of sharing more concretely what you're doing as a GP coordinator and leading this work on your campus and kind of trying to keep that momentum going. So thank you both so much. I want to also thank everybody who has joined our webinar series throughout the month of April. As always, we'll upload the resources to our website, including video, PowerPoint resources, and the Vision Resource Center. We'll share the link via email, so if you haven't shared it, please make sure you drop it in the chat. And what's next? So this particular series, this is the last one, but we have upcoming webinars. So we have a GP workshop that has been repurposed as Redesigning with Transitions in Mind, Guided Pathways webinar. That's May 1st. We also have the Problem Solving Moving Dual Enrollment online webinar series every other Thursday starting May 7th. And then Moving Student Support's online webinar series. These are kind of specific topics within Guided Pathways every other Wednesday starting May 13th. So make sure you check your inbox. We're gonna send kind of the sign up information in this follow-up email. And thank you again for all the hard work that you're doing and dedication to your students in this really difficult time. This concludes our webinar today. Thank you for joining us. And we'll leave the chat open for a few more minutes. Feel free to comment if you have any additional thoughts or challenges, questions you would like to share. But thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And thank you, Stephanie and Val, again. Thank you so much.